The CAA within the last few minutes has announced that it will be asking airlines to divert round Belarusian airspace. How important is this airspace for the sector?
In the current environment, Guy, it's not as important as you might think, and that's principally because of the disruption caused by the coronavirus. So a lot of flights that would have traditionally gone through that part of airspace, many of those flights are not operating at the moment because of the significant scale back in operations. But in a normal environment for Europe to Asia and clearly into Russia, it is an important piece of airspace.
Willie, hi, it's Alex in New York. So if they wind up having to divert airspace, for example, not in Belarus, like they have to go a different route, isn't that just the companies and then hence the consumers that are going to have to wind up paying for it rather than Belarus itself?
Yes, exactly. You would see airlines have to avoid the airspace, which could be complicated because there are other areas of airspace around there that are closed or that airlines have been recommended not to travel through. But I think the important thing is we do have to strongly condemn the actions of the government of Belarus. You know, what they did on Sunday, intercepting a commercial civil aircraft, clearly put the passengers and crew of that aircraft at risk, and forcing them to divert is unacceptable behavior by any government. And we have to call this out. We need to ensure that the facts behind this are understood and to take steps to ensure it cannot happen again.
What is IATA's message to its members?
Well, it's very important, Guy, that each individual airline assess the risk associated with their operation through this airspace. It is different for each airline, and they will be guided initially by the security information that they get from their own people and from their government. Clearly, they will take direction from...
Isn't that a problem, though? Because individual airlines, it is a massive challenge for them to make decisions on a case-by-case basis. I remember when it was Ukraine and we saw an aircraft downed by a missile system. Airlines had to make decisions that were really, really difficult. Isn't this something that is a competency of governments or regulators that they should be saying yes or no? Do airlines have the skill set to be able to manage this kind of risk?
Yeah, many airlines do, Guy, but not all airlines. And it's a very important point. And you're quite right to highlight the important role that regulators play. So in Europe, airlines will be looking to the guidance issued by IATA, the safety agency of Europe. Outside of Europe, they'll be looking to their own regulators and indeed sharing information with regulators from around the world. So it's important that as much information as possible is made available. And I think the big question is, can airlines continue to have confidence in the air navigation service provider of Belarus when flying through that airspace? If they can't have confidence, well, then they will avoid the airspace. And I've seen some airlines have already done that, but there are airlines continuing to fly through. They will have conducted a detailed risk assessment before they continue through Belarus airspace.
To just add on to Guy's question for a second, if they're looking to you for advice, like what do you then tell them? Because a Ryanair is going to be in a very different situation than like a major international carrier, for example.
Absolutely, and that's why we think it's important that each individual ultimately, because it does rest with them, the decision. Airlines are regulated from a safety and security point of view. We have what's known as the accountable manager. They will be held accountable for the decisions they take. So there is a multi-layered situation that exists when risk assessments are being undertaken. And at the end of the day, if the airline considers that it is safe to fly through the airspace, it still depends on the individual pilot in command to decide whether he or she believes it's safe to continue a flight through Belarus airspace. So nobody wants to put the individual pilot in that position. So I think you will see a natural risk-averse situation being adopted by most airlines.
Do you think that's driven by passengers? Do you think passengers will be worried about this? Does this feel different to the risks that, for instance, flying over Ukraine when the aircraft had actually been downed? Do you think passengers will be saying, you know what, I'm happy to fly the extra hour and go round. I'm happy to fly the extra half hour and go round. What do you think the situation is going to be in terms of just the general public's attitude towards this?
We have the safest form of transport anywhere. And that's because we put safety and security at the top of everything we do. And passengers will expect airlines to ensure that any operation that they do, any flight that they operate, is a safe flight to operate. So I think the customers of airlines can rest assured that this will be done and will be done in a professional and proper manner. And I think we've got to commend the crew of that Ryanair aircraft. They were put in a very difficult situation. I think they took all appropriate measures to ensure the safety of the aircraft, the passengers and the crew. They were forced to do something that they clearly did not want to do, and that is unacceptable. I don't think airlines will want to see their crew put in a position like that going forward. And it's important, therefore, that customers recognize that airlines will ensure the safe operation of all flights that continue to operate in that area.